All right, as more people join us, I'm just going to go over some basic housekeeping. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond FBDI and ADFdi, a smarter approach to Oracle Finance Data Management. I am Stephanie, and I will be moderating today's webinar. And since this is a quick fire webinar, I will just go over a few things as fast as possible before handing it over to our host, Andrew. So, everyone will receive today's recording by the end of the week, so just keep an eye out for that. And then after Andrew presents, we will begin our Q&A portion. During the session, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box down below or in the chat. We will only answer them during the Q&A part of the session, just to allow everyone to hear the whole presentation and the hop off at the end if needed. And this is our first session of the day for our end user education day. So there is still time to register for other sessions. We have 3 more. If you can't make them, don't worry about it because we can still send you the recordings. You still just need to register at least. I might be biased, but I do think it's always best to join the live sessions, especially for the Q&A, because this is the best opportunity to ask questions. So our host today is Andrew. Andrew has been in the Oracle space for many years, having worked in Germany, New Zealand, and the UK in various capacities. Originally a systems developer and a part-time DBA, he has migrated to a more functional role in recent years, working with More4apps to deliver and document their solutions in ERP Fusion Cloud and to be a resource to customers with any questions or challenges in the sales purchasing process. But let's get started and let's get to what we're actually here for. So Andrew, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session, the first session for our end user education series for this quarter, or this half of the year at least. We did one in October, so welcome back to everyone who's been present before. Today's session, we're going to take a look at data entry in Oracle Cloud Fusion, and in particular, your options for mass data entry and maintenance with tools outside the front end. So normally I introduce myself here, but Stephanie did a good job there. So I'll just skip on to the agenda. So this is a rough guide of what we'll be covering in the session today. So we'll start by talking about spreadsheet loading in general terms. And then we'll look at ADFdi and FBDI and why we use them, what their limitations are. And we'll start to think about maybe what would work better for us, what an ideal world would look like in terms of spreadsheet loading. And then we'll look at the More4apps solution, the ERP Cloud Toolbox, and we'll try to highlight why we think it's a better choice for your organization. So this session is primarily focused on the finance area. So we'll take a look at the ERP Cloud Toolbox Finance Module and give you a bit of a look at that in action. We'll showcase a few of the new features there and do some hands-on tasks just to give you guys some familiarity with the solutions, especially to people who haven't seen them before. Yeah, we'll have Q&A at the end, so I think that's been covered. Save your questions and that'll make things smoother during the presentation. But before we go any further, I just wanted to stop for a second and just to get some feedback from the audience. We've got some polling questions just to get a gauge on what your experiences with Oracle Cloud Fusion are. Any problems, common pain points that you're facing out there?
Yeah. So here's our first one. Where are you on your Fusion Cloud ERP journey? So I know that there's a lot of migration happening, so we're just curious about where everyone stands. We'll just give a little bit of time to answer. Oh, nice. All the people already on. Give another like 5 seconds. 3, 2. Okay. Okay. See the results, Andrew?
Well, I can see that there's quite a number of people already on ERP. It seems to be half the audience is already on cloud and a few people planning or moving.
Okay,
and we have
great.
some people, I presume, saying on current ERP. So that's presumably EBS people. So we have some products in that area too. We're not going to be discussing them too much today, but they are very similar in the way they function.
Then here's the next question. Which tool do you primarily use for data uploads in Oracle Cloud ERP, since majority of the people are on here? Interesting.
So it's a good mix already sort of popping up there. A lot of manual entry.
It's interesting.
fewer people using FBDI than we would normally expect, but
Yeah, very
still on
interesting.
both of
I want
them.
to end this, we get to the next one. But yeah, more than half manual entry. And then our last one, that's it. And then, yeah, what's your biggest challenge with managing data in Oracle Cloud? A few more seconds. This is all interesting.
It is. You can see validation and error handling is highly
Yeah.
highlighted, and then just as you'd expect, a lot of people just concerned about how long it takes, especially those people, I guess, who are doing the manual
Yeah, cool.
data
All right, take it
entry.
away, Andrew. That was all.
Okay, I think I can close that, and I'll move on to the next slide, and we can get into it. So, well, as we touched on it then, beyond the front end, the data forms for general low volume data entry, which a lot of people seem to be using there. Most organizations are sort of crying out for methods to handle mass data uploads and maintenance. And then aside from building bespoke interfaces, which is obviously an expensive approach, not only financially, but in terms of effort and support cost, the generally accepted method is to perform these mass updates in Oracle via spreadsheet loading. And this is a pretty simple diagram. Essentially, this is what we want to do. Put our data in a spreadsheet, send it up to Oracle, and know that our new records or changes are being reflected there. And regularly we hear the message from Oracle that they have that base covered for you. And to some extent, that's true, because Oracle provides two seeded methods to achieve this, ADFdi and FBDI, and also VBCS. Now, you see I've got that little bit faded out because I'm not going to discuss VBCS in much depth today. VBCS is more of a framework to build your own solutions for data entry. And since those come with the same burden as bespoke IT-driven integration projects, that's really a different discussion. So just think more about FBDI and ADFdi. So these two are heralded as out of the box, ready to use spreadsheet loading tools. And that's really what we're after, isn't it? Now, with any mass loading tool, we're results focused. We want to send our data up quickly. But obviously, we also want it to be easy. We don't need the distractions of complicated processes. So do we get that from FBDI and ADFdi? I'm not really sure that we do. Now, they're quite different beasts, so we'll just take them one at a time. We'll start with FBDI. So this one is the most comprehensive solution that Oracle provides for spreadsheet loading. I imagine most of you will be familiar with it to some extent. On the face of it, it probably doesn't seem like a bad offering. If you look at this slide, you can see that, and this is to Oracle's credit, there's enormous functional support with FBDI right across the ERP. It's quite impressive from that perspective because practically anything, any item of data really can be populated via FBDI. So this is SCM. You've got 102 templates listed there. On the ERP side, I've broken it into two slides. So we've got 54 for financials, 32 for projects, and procurement has about 15. That's 203 across the board, so it's pretty comprehensive. The number may have slightly changed. I did this slide up just before Christmas, so as far as I'm aware, it's not been added to, but there may be a few more. Now, it's tempting to think, especially looking at this, that if you are using FBDI, then your mass data loading needs are going to be catered for. Oracle's messaging frames it as a spreadsheet loading tool, after all. But I think that would be a mistake. The FBDI approach is to fill a spreadsheet file with data and then to manipulate that file to fit a file import process within the Oracle ERP. So the spreadsheet is only the repository for the raw data. And once the process is invoked, the procedure is not spreadsheet based at all, really, nor is it simple. So looking at this, each of these templates here is a standalone file. So there's quite a complex task involved, excuse me, in getting the data in the right shape and form to load a fully defined data element in the ERP. So if we take suppliers, for example, we can see that there are 8 or 9 files there that you need to fully enter a supplier fit for invoice processing. And the data in each of those needs to be carefully linked and coordinated to avoid problems during the load process. And even those areas that don't require so many files, such as the customer data model, place quite a burden on the data entry team. So if we look at that one, for example, within this customer import spreadsheet, we have 19 individual tabs of data to fill out and coordinate. So this is the main one, party definition, where you lay out your party details. And then you click through each tab, laying out each sub-level of data, making sure you've linked it correctly with the parent record. So with the party site, that's done using the party original system reference value. And likewise, your customer account. But then on the account sites tab, you need to use two columns, so the party site and the account references. So it's quite fiddly. And then when you're finished with all of that, the final step in the spreadsheet is to generate the files that Oracle needs. So over here on the first tab, there's a button for that, and you click through a few file dialogues to get that done. But that's not the end of the story by any means. It's just the beginning. So this here is the FBDI process flow, and it's pretty convoluted. So this is the data entry bit in the spreadsheet. But the whole of the loading, feedback, and error reconciliation process is done outside the spreadsheet. So at the end of it all, we don't even get feedback in the spreadsheet to let us know what's happened. So we need to use the front end to go and figure out whether our data has been put into Oracle as we intended. And then any corrections will need to be put back into the worksheet, and we run through that whole process again. So we've got things to do in Excel, conversions from CSV format, import jobs to run in Oracle, and error reports in PDF format to reconcile. So it's not really a process that I'd want to hand to my end users. So just thinking that way, it's pretty clear that FBDI is not really the spreadsheet solution that we really want. And we could talk about all of these shortcomings at length, but the main concern is that it doesn't allow an end user to simply do all their data uploads to Oracle from the spreadsheet. The real engine's outside the spreadsheet in the Oracle front end. And it's an IT-centric process, not really suited to end users. So what about ADFdi? Well, ADFdi is more of a live online data entry spreadsheet mechanism, and it's a better fit, really. But it is limited by what Oracle templates exist. So there are some available in the finance area. Fixed assets is a highly ADFdi geared area. And this here is the asset additions ADFdi sheet. So you can already see that there are some improvements there over FBDI because there's feedback in the sheet. The upload controls are in the toolbar there too. So you will be driving it from the spreadsheet, which is much better than FBDI. One of the drawbacks of the ADFdi templates in the finance area, though, is that they generally load data into the interface tables rather than directly create the records in the system. So there's still a number of tasks to perform in the front end to push them through, which means extra work reconciling errors, as those records that fail need to be reworked by generating a separate spreadsheet. And this can be quite a tiresome process. Now we're going to talk in depth about the More4apps tools in a minute, but I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and just run you through a side-by-side video demonstration that I have made this earlier in the week. It's just going to compare the More4apps ERP Cloud Toolbox versus the ADFdi process for fixed assets, this one here, which is a pretty typical use case in finance. With this, it'll be able to highlight the problems with ADFdi, and it'll just sort of show you how much easier it can all be. Because superficially, at least, More4apps might seem quite similar to ADFdi, but watching this, I think you'll see it's much better suited to your end users. So let's compare spreadsheet loading tools, ADFdi versus the More4apps ERP Cloud Toolbox for asset additions, 1,000 assets with some errors in the dataset. We have a source sheet of new assets, and we'll transfer that into each tool and run them side by side. So we're transferring the asset data into both tools, and it's a pretty similar process for both. Let's speed up the clock. On the left here is the finance module from the toolbox, and on the right the ADFdi process from asset management. With More4apps, the process is a lot faster because with the layout flexibility we have a much more manageable set of columns. So it doesn't take long to finish and kick off the load. But on the ADFdi side it takes longer. Up front, we had to insert rows and interface line numbers, and then the data transfer is more taxing, navigating the rigid layout with all those unused columns. Finally, we're ready there too, and we kick off the load on that side. Meanwhile, the More4apps tool is working through the load, and there's nothing to do. In fact, we could switch to another application and get on with some other work. Now, the ADFdi validation and load process has limited scope, so finishes relatively quickly, but the results are not easy to find. Some are visible in the spreadsheet, but if we check the scheduled job, we find errors flagged there too. So we've got two places to look at to make fixes. First, the worksheet. So I'll reorder the data to see the ADFdi rejections and work through those. It's a bit tricky because messages are not visible in the sheet, just in that status view panel to the right. So there's a lot of row by row work with the cursor to correct them. Painful. On the More4apps side, the initial load is finished and all of the errors we hit are returned there with the detail. So we can sort the sheet by error type, which makes applying fixes easier. Scrolling through similar problems and putting in the relevant changes together with copy down and copy and paste. On the ADFdi side, the sheet corrections are done and sent up to Oracle. But we still need to deal with that other set of problems in the exception queue. To fix that, we have to generate a new ADFdi file with those exceptions and work through that. It's already turning into quite a manual task. On the More4apps side, the corrections went in easily and we send them back to Oracle. Meanwhile, in ADFdi, there's still loads to do. And while that's going on, the More4apps load is finished. 16 minutes and 47 seconds. There's still quite a bit of work left to do there in ADFdi. Well, we're ramping the clock ahead now, but it really is a pain in ADFdi. There's just too many manual steps. We need to check results on both sides for each load and generate a separate ADFdi file each time we strike a problem. And all the while that clock is ticking by. So I'm whizzing through almost too fast to see now, but you get the picture. We've had to monitor jobs and generate spreadsheets all over the place for corrections to corrections. It's really manual. Eventually though, all the assets are loaded and we're finished on both sides, 28.5 minutes. And let's compare results. Well, ADFdi took significantly longer and we were busy the whole time with manual tasks. In the More4apps tool, there was far less to do, less than 4 minutes of manual intervention. So that's a pretty big difference. And we were able to manage it all in one spreadsheet versus 6 on the ADFdi side. So you can see from that how choosing the right spreadsheet loading solution makes a big difference. And also it's worth highlighting that a lot of the manual intervention you saw there in the ADFdi is mirrored with the FBDI process too. If you think back to that FBDI process flow earlier, lots of work in the front end that we'd rather do without. More4apps is definitely an easier tool for your end users to work with. It's also worth noting that Oracle doesn't really promote ADFdi for big bulk integrations. It only supports up to 20,000 rows, something like that. And there are rumors that Oracle's intention is to end date support for ADFdi over the long term. And the current recommendation is to build VBCS solutions for future-proofing the processes. No thanks. With More4apps, there's no uncertainty over future support, and we take care of reacting to Oracle upgrades on your behalf. And obviously, you get a far improved user interface. So you've already seen a taster there of the More4apps product, the ERP Cloud Toolbox. And it has 4 modules, and you can see them listed here. Today's focus is on the finance. And within that, there are a number of tools for your specific tasks. So you can create and maintain customer supplier master data, including banking details, payables, invoices, manage holds and releases. And on receivable side, you have invoices, receipts, on account credit, things like that. And you can also manage your fixed assets, additions, transfers, adjustments, and so on. So it's quite a powerful set of tools. And so I'm going to show it to you in action now. So we're going to do just a short demonstration really of some of the more recently added features in the module, the finance module. So we'll look at some AR receipting and some applied, well, credit memos with applications. So we'll just jump in. I'll switch over to my spreadsheet. I'm already logged in. Hopefully my session has stayed live. So this is the finance module. So it's just a spreadsheet. And if I scroll across it, you can see that I've got a sheet set up to create receipts. and I could apply, adjust, and reverse all in the one sheet. And that's one of the things that we like to make a fuss about at More4apps, especially when you think about how the FBDI works. There's lots of sheets, tabs, various tasks, but here it's everything in one place. Now, the receipting module integrator, sorry, has been recently released. We'd like to have added it further earlier, but Oracle's web services weren't quite mature enough, so we had to wait, but we're able to offer it now. So those people who've been waiting, here it is. I'm just going to show you how to use it generally in action. We've got our toolbars at the top to control our interaction with Oracle. And as with any of our tools, you can, well, any spreadsheet really, you can put your receipting information directly in. We also have data forms that you can use to populate the values by hand if you choose. But probably you're going to have some sort of process where you're collecting that data into some sort of digital format, and that's what we recommend. So if you've got some information coming from your bank for your receipts or something like that, pretty easy task to coordinate your worksheet to match your source data, and then you can just copy and paste, and that's where you're going to get your real time savings wins in a spreadsheet loading tool. So these receipts, I've got miscellaneous receipts, and I have some standard receipts in the same sheet, you can see. And if I scroll across, you can see that I'm creating some of them all, but at the standard one, some of them I'm just creating the receipt, others I'm applying to my transactions or to my accounts, and then also I'm going to adjust my Oracle transactions to match if that's necessary. So when I'm happy with the process, I can go and click this button. You can see I've got a few columns that don't have any data in now. I'm going to use the same value for each one of these records. They're all for this particular business unit, and I'm going to do the same accounting date for everything, and it's going to be the same receipted bank account. So rather than collect that for each record, I can leave that out of my data collection and just put the value in to this, what we call the default row. And that's really going to save you some time. We can let the tool do our data entry for us. You'll see those drop in. I'll do an upload. And you can see those defaults have dropped in. So that's auto data entry for us. So that's really, honestly, I think that's a really useful piece of functionality. All our tools have it. So it's just doing the load now. It's creating a web service call for each of these receipts to be created, and we'll get feedback in a second. Doing the applications at the same time, you can see, and you'll see the adjustments loaded too for those 5. So then we'll get our results back from Oracle. It's all pretty green. There is one record there that has a problem, and that's because I've used a value that doesn't match Oracle's expectations. So I could go into the data form, choose from one of the drop downs the appropriate value, but it looks to me like I've probably just used the wrong value for a check. So I'll just copy it down, and you can normally do that sort of thing quite easily from other values in the worksheet, and then just upload that one record. So there we are. I've created, I don't know how many that is, 15 or so, 25 or so, sorry, receipts. Obviously you can do things with those receipts once you finish. So I'm going to take these ones down. I just created them, and I'll just paste them in, and we'll download them, and we'll see what has been created on the Oracle side, and we can do various changes or further transactions against them. I have a few download options. If I had different data set, I might choose to pull out from open receivables. I'm going to pull down all the receipt data here. And that'll just bring everything into the worksheet. So I think there's about, maybe there's 12, something like that there. In a second, you'll see it prompt me when it's brought the data in. 11 there is, sorry. It's asking me whether I want to keep those in. Now that I don't need to keep those in, but if I put in 11 receipts and I only got 4 or 5 in the download, that would mean that 7 of my receiving numbers don't correspond to Oracle records. So that's a good visual check to keep that in the worksheet sometimes, just so when I look at my values down here, I can see which ones are missing if I put it in wrong, typed it in incorrectly, something like that. So these receipts, I just created them, and I can do other tasks to them. There are update options, various levels, following the Oracle limitations and what you're allowed to update. The services will stop you from doing anything illegal. But I could also, for example, do reversals. So I've got another source where I've got my reversal information ready. So that's really useful if you can sort of build that sort of picture up and just paste it in. So I'm going to reverse these ones. I'll just scroll over here so we can see the feedback. You don't have to do that. You can do it at any time. And this time I'll just do the selection. I think I did the whole sheet the first time. So you can see that, you're not limited to doing things only once. You can do changes afterwards, and you can do any number of transactions at the same time: create, adjust, apply. I could also apply some of my first ones that didn't have applications. I could apply them too. It looks like there was one I missed. Never mind. So that's receipting. It's been a long time coming. We really would like to have offered this quite a while ago, but there were, like I said, some of the limitations with the way Oracle's services were working. So it's really great that we've been able to put this in now. And another piece of new functionality that's worth looking at is the applications to credit memos. So we've had credit memo support for probably about a year now. But those were on account only, and you couldn't apply them to transactions because of the way Oracle's services weren't working. Well, that's been fixed by Oracle and built into our product. So it's going to be a very similar application, demonstration as we just saw. So I've got some data in the sheet that I've already prepared. I've got some memos that I will create and some line information, and I can apply them at the same time. But I've also downloaded a few that I created earlier, and I'm hoping I haven't already done the apply. And I can just either do the create and the apply at the same time, or I can bring up my open ones and apply them after the fact. So I'll just do that. I'll just do the selection. I had to set my data up again, so I'm hoping I haven't accidentally run these ones before, but I'm pretty sure I should be okay. You see, it's pretty quick. It's calling the 2 web services for each of those lines. So I don't know how long that took, but it didn't feel like long. And then I've already done my task. So I've created and applied those credit memos, some on account. And yeah, so that's it. I'll just skip back to our slide deck. Hopefully you can see the blue logo. And I just wanted to mention, so we've got those 2 new pieces of functionality there. Obviously, we've still got the existing stuff, and we've got a release coming up at the end of June where we expect, I think the 30th, something like that. We expect to put in GL Journal support and installments on your payable invoices. So that's what's in the pipeline. That brings me to the end of what I had ready to demonstrate for you guys today. So we can get into the Q&A. Hopefully I'll be able to answer the questions. If I can't, we'll take them away and make sure you get your answers.
Yeah, so we will do the Q&A for about the next 10, 15 minutes. So if you can submit any questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. It can be about FBDI, ADFdi, More4apps, anything. If you initially ask a question and have any further clarifying questions, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. It might just be easier to go about that. And we will try to go through the ones that were already submitted first. And if we run out of time, we will certainly take those offline, but we will do our best to go through all of them. So we do have one. So someone actually did say that they're more concerned about overrides for job titles and employee rate overrides. I'm pretty sure it's not this module, but do you have any information on that?
Not to hand. I mean, contracts could be, it looks like they're talking about an HCM. There's obviously contracts within projects as well. We don't have an HCM tool currently. That's something that, oh, it's the build plan. Right. So yeah, well, you're actually in the wrong session for that. I think there's a projects, but in today
No, we
in
have
this.
procurement. It's procurement. No projects this time around, but we can, yeah, next time.
Well, we do have support for build plans and contract agreements and project contracts. So maybe just direct your question to, I'm not sure who the right contact with that for that would be, but someone at More4apps, maybe Stephanie, if you could take a note of who
Yeah.
that is it Kendra? And then because that looks like we can, I mean, from what I'm reading there, that's something that we support.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do that. So how long does it typically take to get up and running with the finance module or any module, I guess?
Well, not too long. Because Oracle's Fusion is a software and a service, there's no installation. Um, so you have to set some roles. Each of these loads that we do correspond to an Oracle Web Service, and you need to roll out the roles for that. And we have automated scripts for that. So that takes, I don't know, depending on how many people you do, a couple of minutes, maybe to the side half an hour for roles. Each person who's using it on their spreadsheet will need to have the project module, or sorry, the ERP Cloud Toolbox installed as an add-in to Excel. That's what brings those buttons up into your toolbar. And that's just a little MSI, Microsoft installer task. And it can be rolled out centrally too. But yeah, maybe 15 seconds to do that per machine once familiar with what you're doing. So it's really no effort to get going. You'll need to be licensed. So the first time you log in, there'll be some steps to just verify your company's license and things like that.
For someone brand new to More4apps, where's the best place to start?
Well, we've got a slide for that coming up now. I don't know if you want me to move on to it. So we have a community now where you can, a whole lot of resources piled together for like frequently asked questions and forums and what have you. I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and come back if we need to. So take a note of that URL. Um, really, really great resource this, and you can, if you're looking at EBS, I mean, we're talking about cloud today, but there's a whole sense of mirrored resources for the EBS products we offer as well. It's where you can submit questions and end up talking to our support people. Um, yeah, that's the place I'd go to first. You could obviously visit our website, but if you want feedback from us, I recommend just creating yourself a profile on the community.
Yeah. For teams already using FBDI, how easy is that transition?
Very easy. Anybody who's using FBDI will be crying out um, for a better process. Honestly, we saw in the polling question how the validation was like a real pain point. And obviously with FBDI, you put your data into the spreadsheet. Once you pass it up to Oracle, you don't even know whether your data that you've put there makes any sense. So as soon as as soon as people get their hands on a product like this, I think you'll just find they're so motivated to use it. There's actually a validation pass that you can run prior to loading where you just can check all those values make sense. So those people that are using it, they will immediately know that what they've got in the spreadsheet is suitable. And honestly, they'll be jumping in your back to roll it out into other areas, I'm sure. FBDI just it's not really something that an end user wants to be dealing with. And of course, an end user is the person who knows the data. So an end user is the person who needs the feedback, when something doesn't make sense, doesn't match what Oracle expects. But is an end user going to be the person who's presented you with that information if you're using FBDI? Probably not. You're probably going to be using an IT person. And then you have all of that communication and dialogue that has to happen to get what Oracle's returned and reconciling that and correcting it. So these tools, the user who would maybe be using the data forms in a for a smaller task, for example, they're getting that information directly in front of them. And I mean, I can't overstate it. It's exactly what they'll be asking for. And if you're talking about how long it will take them to get used to it, just download an existing transaction so or piece of master data so you can see what it looks like, and then you can use that format and that template for all your other records.
Great. Someone asked about what about like how does More4apps ensure data security and compliance?
Well, I touched on when we were talking about the
Okay.
install how your user role has to be assigned within Oracle. So you can't use it unless you are assigned the ability to make that change or make that addition of data within Oracle. So there's Oracle security. But also because your validation is there, you can't load a bad piece of data in. You just can't. Oracle's web services are behind each of those rows that we're calling up. So each of them are passing through Oracle's secure logic. And yeah, you just don't have to make, you don't even really need to consider that sort of thing. Anybody who's using it, you will have chosen them to be the appropriate users. They'll know their data, and then the tool and Oracle will stop them from doing anything by mistake that they shouldn't be.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't have any more questions. If you guys have any questions like after the fact, Andrew, if you want to show your email again, that would be good. You can
Yeah.
always reach out to Andrew or to myself, anybody. But before Andrew makes his final remarks, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And then we still have a few more sessions. The next one at the top of the hour will be on blanket purchase agreements and the procurement, followed by that we'll have one on migration with a special guest with Huron Consulting Group. And then later, it probably doesn't really relate to a lot of you guys, but it's our EBS templates and our EBS toolbox. But you can still join if you want to. Just keep a lookout for the recording by the end of the week. And I hope to see you all at a later session. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I really appreciate you guys being in the audience today, and yeah, my email is there. I'm more than happy to respond directly if you've misunderstood something or want me to clarify any of the points I raised.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.